Well, now we come to chapter 17 of the Screwtape letters, where the idea in this chapter is about gluttony. But it's interesting to see the way that gluttony is talked about. Wormwood is told this has largely been affected by concentrating all our efforts on gluttony of delicacy, not on gluttony of excess. And again, we're going to see these two kinds of gluttony. Again, to talk about gluttony, again, that falls within those levels of virtue we talk about. It's good, to eat a meal. It's good to enjoy that. It's sometimes when we go above and beyond just eating because, for an enjoyment, eating because we have to, and moving way beyond to saying, getting done with a meal and going, I don't feel so well. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Might be one of those points where you could get into a form of that gluttony. But that's more the gluttony of excess. But the interesting thing is, and this is kind of a new idea for a lot of people. I never really thought about it much until I read the Screwtape letters, of the gluttony of delicacy. Where this is what the mother is experiencing. Where we hear, she would be astonished, one day I hope will be, to learn that her whole life is enslaved to this kind of sensuality, which is quite concealed from her by the fact that the quantities are small. But what do quantities matter, provided we can use a human belly and palate to produce quarreledness, impatience, uncharitableness, and self-concern. She doesn't see herself as being a glutton, because what she wants is smaller and less costly than what has been set before her. She never recognizes as gluttony her determination to get what she wants, however troublesome it may be to others. Again, sometimes we just don't think in some of these other terms beyond being straightforward of gluttony as just eating way too much. Described at the very moment of indulging her appetite, she believes that she is practicing temperance. She thinks is doing a good thing by not eating so much. But in a crowded restaurant, she gives a little scream at the plate, at which when some overworked waitress sets it before her, and she says, "Oh, that's far too much. Take it away and bring me about a quarter of it." If challenged, she would say she is doing this to avoid waste. In reality, she does it because the particular shade of delicacy to which we enslaved her is offended by the sight of more food than she happens to want. Again, there's this idea of just being gracious. Okay, somebody serves you way too much. You know what? You don't have to eat it all. You can let some of it go. She has what is described as the all I want state of mind. All she wants is a cup of tea properly made, or an egg properly boiled, or a slice of bread properly toasted. Of course, she can never find anybody who can do this just properly. It says because her properly conceals an insatiable demand for the exact, almost impossible, palatable pleasures, which she imagines she remembers from the past that she describes as the days when you could get good servants, but known to us as the days when her senses were more easily pleased, and she had other kinds of pleasures, which made her less dependent on those of the table. Again, it's this idea of the past, that nostalgia, looking back at a particular period, but she fails to realize the big picture. Food was good to her because she wasn't so picky. She really didn't care as much about what it was that she was eating. I think about St. Paul, who, said, okay, I can do with a lot, or I can do without. I've known I can have a feast, or I can fast. It really doesn't make a difference. That's the sublime. The ridiculous one is there's a show on TV about very rich people who hire out a mega yacht, and what it is, you see what it is that they're asking to eat. And there was one where it was a husband and wife, where the wife wanted something like pickled quail's eggs. It had to be that. Her husband, all he wanted was a hamburger. He wanted a steak. Even the cook pointed out, This guy wants the food of his youth. He wants the simple stuff. He might have more money than God, it seems, but all he cares about is having, just the basic stuff. And sometimes we have to realize it is that basic stuff that can make us as happy as any gourmet meal possibly could. You don't have to have caviar when a hot dog is going to make you very happy. Now, we are told about the patient, the man in our story, that he's not so likely to be caught up in the all I want camouflage. That we're told males are best turned into gluttons by the help of their vanity. They ought to be made to think themselves very knowing about food, to pique themselves on having found the only restaurant in town where steaks are properly cooked. What begins then as vanity can be turned into a habit. But however you approach it, the great thing is to bring him into the state in which the denial of any one indulgence, it matters not which, champagne or tea or cigarettes, puts him out, and then his charity, his justice, and obedience are all at your mercy. Again, that idea of we are able to find the right restaurant. This is the only place in town. And especially there's always something about, I know that, I'm the only one that knows this place too. I think about there's a popular cliche about up and coming rock bands. You always got this small group that would follow them, and they kind of said, wow, this belongs to us. But then as soon as this group that they really want to become popular becomes really popular, they get mad and say they've sold out because everybody else is coming to it rather than just the little group. Again, I think that's similar to that idea of, this just belongs to me. I know the right place that nobody else does. Then we get into that idea that to make him do without something just absolutely undoes him. What do you mean I can't have this particular sauce on my steak today? What do you mean you're out of that? I came here, and he starts to lose himself, loses charity and justice and things like that. So that's the great thing about Lent, is Lent teaches us to at least pick something sometimes, to do without. I always say giving up chocolate for, 6 weeks is not going to destroy us. It's not going to be the worst thing that's ever going to happen to us in our lives. But if it teaches us to say no in one place, it can teach us to say no in other places. We say no to something small so that we can say no to something greater. We say no to chocolate so that we can say no to sin. Screwtape writes, keep him wondering what pride or lack of faith has delivered him into your hands when a simple inquiry to what he's been eating or drinking for the last 24 hours would show where your ammunition comes from, and thus enable him by a very little abstinence to imperil your lines of communication. Again, when we start to realize, we've given ourselves over to food, or we can take this beyond. It could be drinking, it could be some other things that have gotten, again, to excess. Then we learn how to pull back a little bit. Again, the idea of Lent, the idea of fasting. We do with less, a little bit, and that a little bit of fasting can go a very long way. So again, if you have any questions, let me know as we go along.